Take your filthy hands off me. Vanessa Cole screamed as the sound of the slap echoed through the luxury shopping plaza. Every head turned. Phones rose into the air. Marcus Reed stood frozen beside the marble fountain, one hand against his cheek, his old gray work jacket hanging loose over his thin body. His worn shoes were soaked from the rain outside. A ripped grocery bag rested near his feet, medicine bottles rolling across the polished floor. Vanessa looked beautiful in white designer clothes and diamond earrings. That only made the humiliation worse. You followed me here looking like this, she snapped. You really want these people to think I dated a poor loser? Laughter spread through the crowd. Marcus lowered his eyes. His voice shook. Vanessa. I only came because your assistant said you still had my mother's hospital payment. Your mother. Vanessa laughed louder. That is not my problem anymore. A few rich guests whispered behind her. He smells like the subway. Look at his clothes. Security should remove him. Marcus bent down quickly, trying to gather the medicine before someone stepped on it. One bottle cracked open on the floor. His hands trembled. Please, he whispered. My mother needs those tonight. Vanessa crossed her arms. Then maybe you should have worked harder in life. Another wave of laughter hit him. A security guard stepped closer. Marcus looked around desperately. Nobody moved. Nobody defended him. Even the employees kept their heads down. The giant glass doors reflected two different worlds. Vanessa stood under golden lights beside rich friends and expensive bags. Marcus stood alone with wet sleeves, tired eyes, and broken medicine at his feet. I never lied to you, Marcus said quietly. I cared about you. Vanessa rolled her eyes. Love does not pay for private jets, Marcus. That sentence made the crowd laugh again. One woman started recording closer to his face. Marcus swallowed hard. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded hospital bill covered in rainwater stains. I just need the money you promised, he said softly. After that, I will leave. Vanessa slapped the paper from his hand. You are embarrassing me in front of my fiancé's family. The bill slid across the marble floor. Marcus stared at it silently. Then he slowly knelt down to pick it up. The crowd became even crueler when they saw him kneeling. Look at him begging. Pathetic. This is why poor people stay poor. Marcus closed his eyes for one painful second. He looked like a man trying not to break apart in public. A young waitress nearby took one small step toward him, her face filled with pity. But Vanessa noticed immediately. Do not help him, she snapped coldly. Unless you want to lose your job too. The waitress froze. The tiny hope disappeared instantly. The security guards moved closer now. One grabbed Marcus by the arm. Sir, you need to leave. Marcus did not fight back. He held the medicine tightly against his chest like it was the last thing he had left in the world. Then something strange happened. As the guard pulled him toward the exit, a black luxury car suddenly stopped outside the glass doors. The crowd quieted slightly. A tall man in a dark suit stepped out holding an umbrella. His eyes locked directly on Marcus. Vanessa frowned. Marcus looked confused. Then the man spoke into his phone with visible panic. We found him, he said. Mr. Reed is here. Silence crashed through the lobby. Marcus slowly lifted his head. The entire lobby fell silent after the words, Mr. Reed is here. Even the security guard loosened his grip on Marcus's arm. Rain tapped softly against the giant glass windows while the tall man in the dark suit walked forward with controlled steps. Vanessa frowned immediately. Who are you? She demanded. The man ignored her. His eyes stayed fixed on Marcus. On the poor man's tired face. On the broken medicine bottle in his hands. on the faded bracelet barely visible under his wet sleeve. Marcus looked confused and embarrassed at the same time. "You have the wrong person," he said quietly. "I am just here for my mother." The stranger finally spoke. "What is your full name?" Marcus hesitated. The crowd leaned closer. Vanessa crossed her arms impatiently. "This is ridiculous. He is nobody." But the man did not even look at her. "Your name," he repeated calmly. Marcus swallowed hard. "Marcus Elijah Reed." The man's expression changed for 1 second. Just 1 second. But it was enough. Enough to make the woman beside him nervous. Enough to make Vanessa stop smiling. "Sir," the assistant whispered carefully. "That is the same middle name from the old file." Marcus heard that. His eyes lifted slowly. "What file?" Nobody answered him. Instead, the stranger glanced down at the wet hospital bill in Marcus's hand. "Your mother is sick." Marcus nodded once. "Kidney failure." His voice cracked slightly. "The hospital said they will stop treatment if I do not pay tonight." A painful silence spread through the lobby. Behind Marcus stood luxury stores glowing with gold lights and diamond displays. Behind the stranger waited a black armored car with chauffeurs and guards. Two different worlds stood face to face. Vanessa suddenly laughed again, trying to regain control. "So this is what this is about," she said loudly. "A poor man looking for sympathy." Some guests laughed with her, but weaker this time. The stranger finally looked toward Vanessa. His stare was cold enough to quiet half the room instantly. "Did you strike him?" he asked. Vanessa blinked. "Excuse me. I asked a simple question." Marcus stepped back quickly. "Please," he whispered. "Do not make trouble because of me." That sentence made the stranger study him even harder. Like he recognized something deeper than fear. A small boy standing near the fountain suddenly pointed at Marcus's wrist. "Mom," he said innocently, "that bracelet looks like the one in Grandpa's picture." The entire room froze again. Marcus quickly pulled his sleeve down. Vanessa's face tightened immediately. "Enough," she snapped. "Security, remove him now." One guard moved forward again, but the stranger lifted one hand slightly. The guard stopped instantly. Tiny hope flickered across Marcus's exhausted face. Just for a second. Then Vanessa walked closer and lowered her voice dangerously. "You do not understand," she told the stranger. "He lies to rich women for money." Marcus looked hurt more than angry. "That is not true." "Then why did you come here dressed like this?" Vanessa shot back. "To shame me?" Marcus looked down at his wet shoes. "I came because my mother trusted your promise." That line hit harder than the slap earlier. If you are watching from somewhere in the world right now, tell me, do you believe Marcus is telling the truth, or do you think Vanessa is right about him? The assistant beside the stranger quietly opened an old tablet file. A blurry family photo appeared on the screen for 1 second before he quickly hid it again. But Marcus saw enough. A young woman stood beside a private jet in the picture. And on her wrist was the exact same bracelet Marcus wore now. His breathing stopped. "Where did you get that photo?" he asked weakly. The assistant immediately closed the file. Vanessa noticed the panic too. Her confidence cracked for the first time. "Sir," she said sharply to the stranger, "your family should not involve itself with people like him." But the stranger was no longer listening to her. He kept staring at Marcus like he was trying to solve a ghost from the past. Then Marcus's cracked phone suddenly rang in his pocket. His face turned pale when he answered it. "What?" he whispered. A nurse's frightened voice echoed through the speaker loud enough for nearby people to hear. "Mr. Reed, your mother collapsed again." Marcus nearly dropped the phone. The stranger stepped forward immediately. "Take me to him," he ordered his assistant quietly. Vanessa's eyes widened in sudden fear. Marcus nearly ran out of the luxury plaza after the hospital call ended. Rain poured harder now. His old jacket clung to his thin body while he held the cracked medicine bottle against his chest. Behind him, the black luxury car followed slowly through the wet city streets like a shadow from another world. Inside the car sat the silent stranger, watching Marcus through the rain-covered window. "Find everything about him," he said quietly to his assistant. "Especially his mother." "Yes, Mr. Kingston." Marcus did not hear that name. He only heard his mother's weak breathing inside his memory. He rushed into St. Mary's Public Hospital 20 minutes later. The smell of old medicine and bleach filled the narrow hallway. Paint peeled from the walls. Nurses moved quickly between crowded rooms. Nothing here looked like the marble luxury world Vanessa belonged to. Marcus stopped outside room 214 before forcing himself to smile. "Mama," he whispered softly as he entered. Angela Reed looked fragile beneath the thin hospital blanket. Her oxygen tube shook slightly with every breath. But when she saw her son's wet clothes and red cheek, her tired eyes filled with pain. "She hurt you again," Angela whispered. Marcus quickly looked away. "I am fine. Do not lie to your mother." He sat beside her bed and quietly placed the medicine on the table. One bottle was broken. He tried to hide it. Angela noticed immediately. Silence filled the room for a moment. Then she reached for his trembling hand. "You missed dinner again." Marcus forced a weak smile. "I ate already." But the empty vending machine wrapper inside his pocket told another story. A doctor entered holding a clipboard. His face looked exhausted. "Mr. Reed," he said carefully, "the payment deadline cannot wait any longer." Marcus stood quickly. "Please. Just one more day. The dialysis machine is already reserved for another patient tomorrow morning." Angela closed her eyes slowly like she already understood what that meant. Marcus looked broken for the first time. "I promised her I would save her," he whispered. The doctor lowered his voice. "Sometimes promises are heavier than money." Outside the room, a landlord waited near the hallway vending machines holding Marcus's overdue rent notice. "If you do not pay tonight," the man snapped, "your room gets locked." Marcus nodded weakly. Another weight added to his shoulders. Another door closing. Meanwhile, across town, Mr. Kingston stood inside a massive glass office overlooking the city skyline. Warm lights reflected against expensive black marble floors. His assistant placed an old family archive box onto the desk. Inside rested faded photographs, hospital records, and a silver bracelet identical to Marcus's. Mr. Kingston stared silently at a blurry picture of a woman standing beside a private jet 25 years earlier. The same bracelet rested on her wrist. "The middle name matches," the assistant whispered. "And the hospital file from years ago disappeared after the accident." Mr. Kingston's jaw tightened slightly. "Who erased it?" "We still do not know." Back at the hospital, Marcus quietly opened his old backpack searching for bus money. A folded photograph slipped out accidentally onto the floor. A nurse picked it up. "This looks expensive," she murmured. Marcus quickly grabbed it back. It showed a young woman smiling beside a black private jet. Half the photo had been torn away. "Where did you get this?" the nurse asked. Marcus froze. "My mother kept it hidden." Tiny hope flickered when his phone suddenly vibrated again. An unknown number appeared. Marcus answered carefully. "Hello." A calm voice replied. "Do not leave the hospital tonight." Marcus frowned. "Who is this?" "Someone trying to protect the truth." The line disconnected immediately. Marcus stared at the phone in silence. For 1 second, hope touched his exhausted face. Then another nurse rushed down the hallway in panic. "Mr. Reed," she cried. "Your mother collapsed again." Marcus ran back toward the room as fear crushed him all over again. At the far end of the hallway, hidden near the elevator shadows, Vanessa slowly lowered her sunglasses and watched him with cold eyes. Then she noticed something in Marcus's hand. The silver bracelet. Her expression changed instantly. Vanessa's eyes stayed locked on the silver bracelet in Marcus's trembling hand while nurses rushed past them in the hospital hallway. For one brief second, real fear crossed her face. Then she hid it behind cold arrogance again. Marcus did not notice. He was too focused on the sound of machines inside his mother's room. Mr. Reed. The doctor stepped out slowly. She is stable for now. Marcus nearly collapsed with relief. He covered his face with one shaking hand. Thank you. From the shadows near the elevator, Vanessa quietly pulled out her phone. He still has it, she whispered urgently to someone on the other line. I saw the bracelet myself. Silence answered her for a second. Then a sharp voice replied, do not let Kingston connect the past. Vanessa's jaw tightened. I understand. Downstairs in the hospital lobby, Mr. Kingston stood beside a large window while rain slid across the glass behind him. His assistant placed several old documents onto a metal table. Hospital files. Adoption records. A damaged photograph. The mother's name is Angela Reed, the assistant explained carefully. But part of the old file is missing. Mr. Kingston studied the torn page silently. One line had been blacked out years earlier. Another name underneath was barely visible. He looked up slowly. Who erased this? We are still checking. Marcus walked into the lobby at that exact moment carrying 2 vending machine coffees he could barely afford. His clothes still looked damp and worn beside the polished black suit surrounding Mr. Kingston. The contrast felt painful. Marcus stopped awkwardly when he realized the billionaire was watching him again. You should be with your family, Marcus said quietly. Not here. Mr. Kingston ignored that. His eyes moved toward the bracelet again. Where did you get it? Marcus hesitated immediately. His fingers tightened around the silver band. It belonged to my mother. Before her. Silence. Marcus looked down. She never told me. Vanessa suddenly appeared from the hallway before Marcus could say more. Still pretending, she snapped loudly. Several visitors turned to watch again. You followed rich people from a shopping plaza to a hospital now? Marcus's face burned with humiliation all over again. Please stop, he whispered. Vanessa stepped closer. Or what? Your secret billionaire friend will save you. Mr. Kingston's expression darkened slightly. Miss Cole, he said calmly, this is a hospital. Exactly, Vanessa fired back. And he is using a sick woman to manipulate sympathy. Marcus looked stunned by the cruelty of that accusation. A nurse nearby frowned uncomfortably. Tiny hope flickered when an older hospital receptionist slowly approached Mr. Kingston holding a dusty archive envelope. Sir, she said nervously, I found another file connected to room 214. Marcus looked confused. Vanessa looked terrified for half a second. The receptionist handed over an old photograph clipped to medical records. Mr. Kingston froze when he saw it. A younger Angela Reed stood beside a private jet 25 years ago. Beside her stood a woman from the Kingston family. And on the woman's wrist was the exact same bracelet Marcus wore now. This cannot be coincidence, the assistant whispered. Marcus stared at the photo in disbelief. Why would my mother know people like that? Nobody answered him. If anything, the silence became heavier. Then came the obstacle. Several pages were suddenly missing from the back of the file. Torn out recently. Mr. Kingston's eyes narrowed immediately. Who accessed these records last? The receptionist looked frightened now. I do not know. Vanessa quickly folded her arms. Maybe the poor man stole them himself. Marcus looked hurt more than angry. I did not touch anything. Mr. Kingston studied both of them carefully. One afraid. One exhausted. One hiding something. One barely surviving. Then his assistant's phone vibrated suddenly. He answered quietly before turning pale. Sir, he whispered urgently, someone erased part of the security footage from the plaza tonight. Mr. Kingston slowly lifted his eyes toward Vanessa. For the first time, she looked nervous under his stare. At that same moment, upstairs inside room 214, Angela Reed opened her weak eyes and whispered a name nobody had heard in years. Nathaniel. Mr. Kingston stopped breathing for 1 second. Because that was his late brother's name. Marcus felt the blood leave his face the moment Angela whispered the name Nathaniel. Mr. Kingston stood frozen beside the hospital bed. Even the machines seemed louder inside the silent room. Vanessa slowly stepped backward near the doorway, her fingers tightening around her purse. She knew that name mattered. How does she know my brother? Mr. Kingston asked quietly. Nobody answered him. Angela looked weak again almost instantly. Her breathing became uneven as she struggled to stay awake. Marcus rushed to her side. Mom, please. Do not force yourself. Angela grabbed his wrist suddenly. Her tired eyes filled with panic. Do not trust them too quickly, she whispered painfully. Some people in rich houses destroy lives to protect secrets. Vanessa immediately cut in. This woman is confused. Her voice came too fast. Too sharp. She is sick. Mr. Kingston slowly turned toward her. Then why are you nervous? Silence hit the room hard. Vanessa crossed her arms again, trying to hide the fear rising inside her. I am not nervous. I am tired of poor people creating stories for money. Marcus flinched like he had been slapped again. A nurse looked away awkwardly. The humiliation returned instantly. Worse this time. Because now it happened inside a hospital while his mother struggled to breathe. Mr. Kingston's assistant stepped closer holding the damaged hospital file. Sir, he whispered carefully, the missing pages were removed less than 48 hours ago. Vanessa's face changed for half a second. Mr. Kingston noticed. Who accessed the records? He asked coldly. Before the assistant could answer, Vanessa suddenly laughed softly. You really believe this man belongs anywhere near your family? She asked the room loudly. Look at him. Several wealthy visitors outside the hospital lounge glanced toward Marcus again. Their eyes moved over his faded jacket. His worn shoes. His shaking hands. One woman whispered, he probably saw an opportunity. Another lifted her phone slightly. Marcus lowered his head in shame. I never asked for any of this, he said quietly. I only want my mother safe. Vanessa stepped closer. Then sign this. She pulled a paper from her designer bag and shoved it toward him. A statement saying your mother made everything up. Marcus looked confused. What? Sign it, Vanessa snapped. And Mr. Kingston's family will cover some hospital costs. The room went silent again. Marcus stared at the paper with disbelief. His mother weakly turned her head from the bed. Do not sign, Angela whispered. Vanessa's voice hardened instantly. If you refuse, maybe this hospital stops waiting for payments. Marcus's eyes filled with panic. Emotional pressure crushed him from every direction now. Bills. Fear. Shame. His sick mother. And wealthy people staring at him like dirt. Please, he whispered painfully. My mother needs treatment. Vanessa leaned closer. Then know your place. Tiny hope appeared for 1 second when Mr. Kingston suddenly took the paper from Marcus's hands. He read it silently. Then his eyes darkened. This says Angela Reed falsely manipulated the Kingston family 25 years ago. Vanessa tried to stay calm. Exactly. Mr. Kingston looked at Marcus again. Did you know about this accusation? Marcus shook his head immediately. No, sir. He is lying, Vanessa fired back. But something no longer matched. Even the assistant noticed it now. Sir, the assistant whispered quietly, the signature date on this document is tomorrow. Mr. Kingston lifted his eyes slowly toward Vanessa. Tomorrow? Vanessa's breathing hitched. The room became dangerously quiet. Marcus looked confused again. How can tomorrow already be signed? One nurse quietly stepped away from the doorway like she no longer wanted involvement. Social pressure shifted slightly for the first time. Not toward Marcus. Toward Vanessa. But she reacted fast. Enough, she snapped loudly. Security, remove him from this floor. 2 guards immediately stepped forward. Marcus backed away instinctively. Angela started coughing violently from the bed. Please. Marcus cried. Do not separate me from my mother. Mr. Kingston suddenly raised one hand. Nobody touches him. The guards stopped instantly. Vanessa looked stunned. Mr. Kingston's voice stayed calm, but colder now. Until I understand why my dead brother's name is connected to this family, Marcus Reed stays. Vanessa's eyes flashed with real fear this time. She turned quickly and walked toward the hallway. But before disappearing around the corner, she quietly made another phone call. We have a problem, she whispered urgently. Downstairs in the hospital parking garage, a frightened janitor nervously looked around before sending a hidden video file to an unknown number. The message attached to it was only one sentence. This is the original airport camera footage from 25 years ago. The janitor's hands shook as he hid inside the dark parking garage stairwell. Rain echoed softly outside the hospital walls. On his cracked phone screen, the old airport camera footage slowly uploaded. Upstairs, Marcus still stood beside his mother's bed while Mr. Kingston stared at the forged document in silence. Vanessa kept pretending to stay calm, but sweat now shined along her forehead. Then Mr. Kingston's phone vibrated. His assistant looked down sharply. Sir, he whispered, someone just sent the original footage. The room froze instantly. Vanessa's eyes widened before she could hide it. What footage? She snapped too quickly. Mr. Kingston did not answer her. He took the phone slowly and pressed play. The grainy black and white video filled the screen. 25 years earlier. Private airport entrance. Rain pouring outside. A younger Angela appeared carrying a baby wrapped in a blanket. Her clothes looked soaked. Exhausted. Terrified. Marcus stared in confusion. Mom, Angela covered her mouth weakly from the hospital bed. Then another figure entered the frame. Vanessa. Younger. Elegant. Furious. The room became completely silent. The footage had no sound, but the body language said enough. Vanessa grabbed papers from Angela's hands. Then security pushed Angela away from the private terminal doors. The baby almost slipped from her arms. Mr. Kingston slowly sat down beside the hospital wall. My God, he whispered. Vanessa immediately pointed at the screen. That proves nothing. Her voice cracked slightly. It proves you were there, Mr. Kingston answered coldly. Marcus looked between them helplessly. What is happening? Nobody answered him immediately. The assistant enlarged the footage. A close shot revealed the papers Vanessa grabbed that night. One page clearly carried the Kingston family crest. Angela started crying silently. I tried to tell the truth, she whispered painfully. Nobody listened. Emotional tension spread through the room like smoke. Even the nurse standing near the door looked uncomfortable now. One wealthy visitor lowered her phone slowly. Another stopped whispering completely. For the first time, people were not looking at Marcus with disgust. They were looking at Vanessa with suspicion. "You destroyed her life," Mr. Kingston said quietly. Vanessa's face hardened instantly. "You do not know the full story." "Then explain it," he replied. She could not. Tiny hope appeared for Marcus when Mr. Kingston gently handed him the phone. Marcus stared at the frozen image of his mother holding him as a baby in the rain. His hands trembled badly. "She was telling the truth," he whispered. "If you are watching right now, comment what you think Vanessa is hiding, because something far darker still has not been revealed." But the hope did not last long. The assistant suddenly frowned at the screen again. "Sir, the video cuts out exactly 3 minutes later." Mr. Kingston looked up sharply. "What happened during those missing minutes?" Nobody knew. And that missing piece changed everything again. Vanessa quickly grabbed onto that weakness. "Exactly," she fired back loudly. "There is no proof of what happened after." Her confidence returned slightly. "Maybe Angela stole those papers." Marcus shook his head instantly. "My mother would never steal anything." Vanessa turned toward him viciously. "Poor people always say that." Angela began coughing violently again from the stress. Marcus rushed to hold her hand. "Mom, breathe slowly." But another emotional spike hit immediately. The assistant paused the video at the exact frame before it ended. Near the terminal doors stood a tall man partially hidden by security. Mr. Kingston leaned closer toward the screen. His face slowly changed. "That is Nathaniel," he whispered. Vanessa went pale. "No," she muttered. "That cannot be possible." Mr. Kingston replayed the frame again. Nathaniel Kingston. His late brother. Standing at the airport that night when Angela was thrown out. The room fell into dead silence. Then the janitor called again in panic. "Sir," he whispered through the phone speaker, "someone knows I sent the footage. They are looking for me." Before anyone could answer, the call suddenly disconnected. The disconnected call left a heavy silence inside the hospital room. Rain still tapped softly against the windows while Mr. Kingston stared at the frozen airport image on the phone screen. Nathaniel Kingston stood beside the terminal doors 25 years ago. Watching Angela being pushed out into the storm with a baby in her arms. Marcus slowly sat beside his mother's bed, trying to process everything. "Why was my father there?" he whispered weakly. Angela closed her eyes painfully. "Because he tried to stop them." Vanessa immediately stepped forward again. "That is a lie." But her voice no longer carried the same power. Mr. Kingston slowly lifted his eyes toward her. "Then why are you afraid of a dead man appearing in old footage?" Vanessa said nothing. For the first time, she looked trapped. Tiny rescue arrived quietly instead of loudly. Mr. Kingston removed his suit jacket and gently placed it over Marcus's shoulders. Marcus looked stunned. Nobody had protected him like that in a very long time. "You are shaking, Mr. Kingston said calmly. Marcus lowered his eyes in embarrassment. "I am fine." "No," Mr. Kingston answered softly. "You are exhausted." The room fell silent again. Emotional warmth slipped into the cold tension for the first time. Angela watched carefully from the bed. Tears quietly filled her tired eyes. Mr. Kingston turned toward his assistant. "Pay the hospital balance tonight." Marcus looked up immediately. "Sir. I cannot repay that." "I did not ask you to," Mr. Kingston replied. Vanessa almost exploded. "You cannot seriously trust these people." Mr. Kingston's expression hardened slightly. "I trust evidence." Emotional contrast surrounded them completely now. Expensive watches. Luxury shoes. Hospital security. Wealthy visitors outside the room whispering nervously. And in the center of it all sat Marcus in worn clothes with trembling hands, trying not to cry beside his sick mother. Tiny Hope slowly entered the room anyway. A nurse stepped closer carefully. "Your mother can finally receive the treatment she needs," she told Marcus quietly. Marcus nearly broke down. "Thank you," he whispered. His voice cracked completely. Mr. Kingston noticed the old silver chain hanging from Marcus's neck while he leaned forward. The same chain Angela wore in the airport footage 25 years ago. The older man stared at it silently. "Where did you get that?" he asked softly. Marcus touched the chain protectively. "My mother gave it to me." Angela suddenly looked terrified. "Marcus," but it was too late. Mr. Kingston slowly opened the small pendant attached to the chain. Inside sat a faded photograph. Nathaniel Kingston. Younger. Smiling beside Angela. The entire room froze again. Vanessa's breathing became uneven instantly. "Impossible," she whispered. Mr. Kingston stared at the photograph for several long seconds. His hands trembled slightly now too. "Nathaniel carried this exact design for years," he whispered. Marcus looked confused again. "I never knew who the man in the photo was." Angela looked away with tears running down her face. "I wanted to protect him," she whispered painfully. "From your family." Vanessa immediately interrupted. "She manipulated Nathaniel for money." Marcus flinched hard at the accusation. But Mr. Kingston raised one hand calmly. "Enough." His voice carried quiet authority now. Even Vanessa stepped back slightly. Another emotional bond formed silently when Mr. Kingston pulled a chair closer beside Marcus instead of standing above him. "Tell me everything you remember," he said quietly. Marcus hesitated. Years of humiliation made trust feel dangerous. "People like you never listen to people like me," he admitted softly. Mr. Kingston looked at him for a long moment. "Maybe that was our family's greatest sin." Silence swallowed the room again. Tiny hope deepened. But danger remained close. Vanessa quickly stepped into the hallway and secretly called someone again. "Find the janitor before he talks," she whispered urgently. Back inside the room, Angela weakly reached for Marcus's hand. "Your father once said something before he disappeared," she whispered. Mr. Kingston leaned closer immediately. "What did Nathaniel say?" Angela's lips trembled. "He said, if anything ever happened to him, tell Marcus the truth about the rain that night." Mr. Kingston slowly stood frozen again. Because those exact words matched something his brother once told him decades ago. And before anyone could speak again, a frightened voice suddenly echoed through the hospital phone line downstairs. "I know what happened that night," the janitor whispered. "And someone is coming to stop me." The frightened janitor kept whispering through the hospital phone line while thunder rolled outside. "I cannot stay long," he said nervously. "She already knows I talked." Mr. Kingston tightened his grip on the phone immediately. "Who?" Silence answered first. Then the old man finally whispered one name. "Vanessa." Marcus looked up sharply from beside his mother's bed. Vanessa froze near the hospital doorway after hearing her name. Her face remained calm, but her fingers trembled around her purse. "That old man is confused," she said coldly. "He barely remembers yesterday." But nobody interrupted the call anymore. Mr. Kingston slowly walked toward the hallway for privacy while his assistant activated the recorder on his phone. "Tell me what happened that night," Mr. Kingston demanded quietly. The janitor's breathing became uneven. "Nathaniel tried to stop them from sending Angela away," he whispered. "He said the child belonged to the Kingston family." Marcus stopped breathing for a second. Angela immediately covered her mouth with shaking hands. Tears rolled silently down her face again. The past finally cracked open wider. Not fully. But enough to wound everyone in the room. Mr. Kingston leaned against the hospital wall as old memories returned violently. Rain. Airport lights. His younger brother shouting. A crying baby wrapped in a faded blanket. And Vanessa standing beside his father that same night. You are lying, Vanessa snapped suddenly. Nathaniel abandoned them himself. The janitor's voice broke again. No. Your father ordered the records changed. Silence swallowed the hallway. Even the nurses stopped moving nearby. Marcus stared at his mother slowly. What records? Angela looked completely broken now. Your birth records, she whispered painfully. They erased your real last name. Emotional contrast deepened around them. Expensive marble floors. Security guards. Quiet hospital lights. And in the middle of it all sat a poor delivery worker discovering his entire identity may have been stolen before he could even speak his first word. Mr. Kingston walked back into the room slowly. His face carried shock now, but also growing certainty. Bring me the archive files from St. Mary Hospital 25 years ago, he ordered his assistant immediately. Vanessa stepped forward fast. That file was sealed decades ago. Mr. Kingston looked directly at her. Why do you know that? Vanessa fell silent. Tiny hope entered again. For the first time, Marcus realized his mother may have told the truth all these years. So I was not crazy, Angela whispered weakly through tears. Marcus slowly held her hand tighter. No, Mama, he whispered back. You were not. Another painful memory surfaced when the janitor spoke again. Nathaniel left something before he disappeared. Mr. Kingston's eyes narrowed instantly. What did he leave? A letter, the old man answered. For the child. Vanessa suddenly interrupted loudly. Enough of this nonsense. She turned toward Marcus with cold rage. People like you survive by inventing stories. Marcus flinched hard at the insult, but this time Mr. Kingston stepped between them quietly. Do not speak to him that way again. His calm voice felt heavier now. Vanessa stared at him in disbelief. The balance inside the room had started shifting. But danger was growing too. The assistant soon returned carrying an old archive box from the hospital basement. Dust covered every folder. Old papers. Missing labels. Broken seals. Mr. Kingston opened one file carefully while everyone watched in complete silence. Inside sat an old birth document with Marcus's birth date. But the surname had been blacked out violently with dark ink. Who changed this? Mr. Kingston whispered. Nobody answered. Then another shock appeared. Tucked inside the folder was an old photograph from the airport that rainy night. Angela holding baby Marcus. Nathaniel standing beside her protectively. But part of the image had been ripped away. Someone else had originally stood beside them. Someone important. Vanessa's face lost color instantly. Angela suddenly grabbed Marcus's wrist weakly. Do not trust her, she whispered through tears. At that exact moment, the janitor's terrified voice returned one final time through the phone speaker. The person who destroyed those records, he paused fearfully. Still lives inside the Kingston mansion. The hospital hallway fell into dead silence after the janitor's final words. The person who destroyed those records still lives inside the Kingston mansion. Vanessa slowly stepped backward first. Her face remained calm, but fear flashed inside her eyes for 1 second too long. Mr. Kingston noticed it immediately. Marcus noticed it too. But before anyone could speak again, Vanessa suddenly grabbed her phone. This entire conversation is insane, she snapped loudly. That old man is manipulating all of you. She turned toward the nurses nearby. Call security. The trap had already started. 30 minutes later, Marcus found himself standing inside the Grand Kingston mansion for the first time in his life. Not as family. Not as a guest. But as a suspect. Vanessa had convinced the Kingston relatives to gather for an emergency family meeting. Expensive chandeliers glowed above marble floors while wealthy guests whispered behind champagne glasses. Marcus stood near the doorway wearing the same worn delivery jacket. His cracked shoes looked painfully out of place against polished black marble. Angela sat weakly beside him in a wheelchair, coughing softly. Social pressure crushed them instantly. Phones lifted. Eyes judged. Rich voices whispered. He came for money. Poor people always invent stories. Look at his clothes. Vanessa walked confidently into the center of the room like she still controlled everything. This young man has been threatening our family with fake documents, she announced dramatically. Gasps spread across the mansion hall. Marcus looked stunned. That is not true. Vanessa ignored him immediately. He manipulated a sick old janitor and stole confidential hospital files. Mr. Kingston remained silent near the staircase above them. Watching. Studying. Waiting. Marcus felt the room turning colder around him. I never stole anything, he said quietly. Vanessa laughed sharply. Then explain why hospital records disappeared after you arrived. Emotional spikes hit one after another. Angela started crying softly beside her son. Security guards stepped closer. The wealthy relatives avoided eye contact entirely. One woman even moved her purse farther away from Marcus. Please, Angela begged weakly. My son only wants the truth. Vanessa cut her off instantly. Truth, she snapped. Your lies nearly destroyed this family once already. Marcus clenched his fists painfully but stayed respectful. You are afraid, he whispered suddenly. Vanessa's smile almost broke. Afraid of what? Of what those missing pages say. Silence spread across the room for a second. Tiny hope flickered again. Mr. Kingston slowly looked toward Vanessa after hearing that sentence. He noticed sweat forming near her temple despite the cold air. Another clue slipped accidentally when Vanessa answered too quickly. There were never extra pages. Mr. Kingston narrowed his eyes immediately. How do you know what pages he is talking about? Vanessa froze. The crowd noticed it too. Tiny cracks were forming inside her perfect story. But she recovered fast. Because desperate people always invent missing evidence. Then the real trap tightened harder. A lawyer suddenly entered carrying documents. Vanessa smiled again. Marcus Reed, she announced loudly. Sign this agreement stating you fabricated everything and you will receive compensation to disappear quietly. Angela gasped in shock. Marcus stared at the papers silently. If he refused, Vanessa threatened legal charges for theft and fraud. If he signed, the truth would disappear forever. Take the money, someone in the crowd muttered. People like him should feel lucky. Marcus looked down at his trembling mother. He looked at the security guards surrounding them. Then at Mr. Kingston, who still had not stepped forward publicly. I will not lie, Marcus said finally. Vanessa's expression darkened instantly. Then leave this house with nothing. Another humiliation exploded. Security guards moved toward Marcus and Angela while wealthy guests watched silently. One person even started recording again. Angela cried harder now. We have nowhere else to go, she whispered painfully. Marcus helped her stand anyway. We leave with our dignity, he answered softly. For one terrible moment, it truly felt over. Then another emotional shift arrived unexpectedly. Little Isaiah suddenly ran into the center of the room holding something tightly in his hands. Mama said hide this, the boy whispered nervously. Every eye turned toward him. In his small hand sat a second copy of the torn airport photograph. And this version showed the missing face clearly. Vanessa stopped breathing. But before anyone could grab the photo, the massive mansion doors slowly opened again. Mr. Kingston stepped fully into the hall at last, holding a sealed archive envelope in one hand. Behind him, a large projector screen flickered on quietly. The projector screen flickered softly against the massive walls of the Kingston mansion while nobody dared to speak. Marcus stood beside his trembling mother near the center of the room. Isaiah still held the second copy of the torn airport photograph tightly against his chest. Vanessa stared at the image like she wanted it destroyed before anyone else could see it clearly. Mr. Kingston walked slowly toward the long dining table and placed the sealed archive envelope beside the projector controls. His calm silence felt heavier than shouting. "Nobody leaves this room," he said quietly. The wealthy guests exchanged nervous looks immediately. Security guards closed the mansion doors behind them. The public stage had finally formed. Crystal chandeliers glowed above frightened faces. Expensive wine glasses remained untouched. Even the people who mocked Marcus earlier now watched him differently. Not with respect yet, but with doubt. Vanessa forced a small smile anyway. "This has already gone too far," she announced confidently. "A poor delivery driver walks into our family home with fake stories, and suddenly everyone forgets logic." Marcus lowered his eyes painfully. The humiliation still burned inside him. Angela gripped his hand tightly from her wheelchair. "We never wanted money," she whispered weakly. Vanessa laughed coldly. "That is exactly what people say before asking for inheritance." Sharp whispers spread across the room again. Some guests nodded. Others avoided eye contact. Marcus felt the pressure crushing him once more. But this time Mr. Kingston stepped forward before Vanessa could continue. "Enough," he said calmly. Silence dropped immediately. Vanessa slowly turned toward him. "You cannot seriously believe them." Mr. Kingston looked directly into her eyes. "I believe someone here is lying." Emotional tension thickened instantly. The projector screen remained dark behind him. The sealed envelope still untouched. And the torn photograph sat on the table between both sides like a loaded secret. Tiny hope appeared again when Isaiah walked closer to Mr. Kingston nervously. "Mama told me hide it because bad people wanted it gone," the boy whispered honestly. Vanessa snapped immediately. "That child does not know what he is saying." Mr. Kingston looked down at Isaiah gently. "Children usually tell the truth before adults teach them fear." Public silence followed that sentence. Vanessa's confidence cracked for half a second. Mr. Kingston then lifted the repaired photograph carefully for everyone to see. The image showed Angela holding baby Marcus beside Nathaniel Kingston at the airport years earlier. But the missing piece now revealed another face standing beside them. Vanessa. Gasps spread across the mansion hall. Vanessa immediately straightened herself. "One old photograph proves nothing." Mr. Kingston nodded slowly. "Correct." He tapped the sealed envelope softly. "That is why I brought more." The crowd leaned closer instantly. Marcus felt his heartbeat shaking inside his chest now. Angela started crying quietly beside him again. If the envelope truly contained the final proof, everything could change forever. But danger still remained. Vanessa stepped closer toward the projector calmly. "Before anyone believes these desperate accusations, perhaps we should ask why hospital files suddenly disappeared." Another obstacle struck hard. Some relatives immediately started whispering again. "Maybe she is right. Poor people can manipulate evidence. This feels planned." Marcus lowered his head painfully. The old shame returned instantly. Then Mr. Kingston asked one quiet question that froze the room again. "Why did you try to seal those hospital records 25 years ago?" Vanessa's face lost color immediately. "I never touched any records." Mr. Kingston slowly opened the archive envelope halfway. "Then your signature should not appear inside." Complete silence swallowed the mansion. Even the servants stopped moving nearby. If you are watching this story right now, comment who you believe deserves justice after everything hidden inside this family. The tension inside the room became unbearable. Tiny hope grew again when the frightened janitor suddenly entered through the side hallway with 2 hospital employees beside him. He looked terrified but determined. "I came because I cannot stay silent anymore," he whispered shakily. Vanessa stepped backward instantly. "You are making a mistake." But before the old man could speak further, Vanessa suddenly raised her voice one final time. "Do not listen to them. They want this family destroyed." Marcus closed his eyes painfully. Angela shook beside him. The crowd stood trapped between power and truth. Mr. Kingston slowly picked up the remote control while holding the archived documents in his other hand. The projector screen brightened at last. A paused security video appeared from the airport years ago. Vanessa's breathing turned uneven immediately. Mr. Kingston looked toward the crowd one final time. Then he spoke quietly. "Before you judge her, watch this." The airport security footage finally started moving across the giant projector screen. Nobody inside the Kingston mansion breathed. Rain poured heavily across the grainy black and white video from 25 years earlier. Then the first shock appeared. Young Angela stepped out of a taxi holding baby Marcus in her arms while Nathaniel Kingston stood beside her protectively. Gasps spread softly through the room. Marcus stared at the screen in complete disbelief. He had never seen his father before. Vanessa folded her arms tightly, but her face had already turned pale. "This proves nothing," she said quickly. Mr. Kingston did not even look at her. "Keep watching." The footage continued. Nathaniel handed Angela a sealed envelope before airport security approached them. Then another figure appeared on screen. Vanessa. Younger. Angry. And shouting at Angela in front of witnesses. The room fell completely silent. "Leave before my father sees you," young Vanessa screamed through the old camera audio. Angela lowered her eyes painfully beside Marcus. Her hands shook uncontrollably now. Then the second reveal arrived. Nathaniel suddenly grabbed Vanessa's arm and pointed directly at baby Marcus. The old audio cracked badly, but one sentence became horrifyingly clear. "He is my son." Public silence exploded across the mansion hall. Phones slowly lowered. Wine glasses stopped moving. Even the people who mocked Marcus earlier looked ashamed now. Marcus could barely stand. Angela cried openly beside him. Mr. Kingston closed his eyes briefly as decades of lies shattered around him. Vanessa stepped forward immediately. The audio could be edited. Her voice cracked for the first time. "Anyone can fake old recordings." Mr. Kingston nodded once calmly. "That is why there is more." He opened the archive envelope slowly and removed several hospital documents. Birth records. DNA authorization forms. A sealed statement from St. Mary Hospital. Every page carried signatures. Including Vanessa's father's name. Sharp whispers spread again. "Oh my God. They hid the child. This family knew." Mr. Kingston handed one paper directly to the family lawyer. "Read the highlighted section." The lawyer adjusted his glasses nervously. Then his face changed completely. "This document confirms Nathaniel Kingston legally acknowledged Marcus Reed as his biological son before disappearing." Angela broke down completely after hearing those words. Marcus grabbed her shoulders gently to keep her from collapsing. The wealthy relative stared at him differently now. Not as a poor intruder. But as blood. Vanessa tried one final denial. Nathaniel was manipulated by her. She pointed violently toward Angela. She trapped him. The frightened janitor stepped forward immediately. "No," he whispered firmly. Nathaniel begged them to protect the child. Another emotional spike hit instantly. Mr. Kingston then revealed the final hidden evidence. A handwritten letter from Nathaniel himself. The paper looked old and worn from time. Mr. Kingston read only one sentence aloud. If anything happens to me, tell my son Marcus that I never abandoned him. Marcus stopped breathing for a second. Tears filled his eyes immediately. Angela covered her mouth while sobbing beside him. Vanessa looked trapped now. Cornered by every truth she spent years burying. But the final blow had not arrived yet. Mr. Kingston slowly lifted the repaired airport photograph again. There is still one question left, he said quietly. He turned toward Vanessa fully. Why were you standing beside my father when these records were erased? Vanessa remained silent. The crowd stared directly at her now. Nobody defended her anymore. Mr. Kingston then opened the final page inside the archive file. His hands tightened slightly for the first time all night. Because according to this statement, he said slowly, you personally signed the order transferring Marcus out of the Kingston family registry. Complete silence swallowed the mansion. Vanessa's lips trembled. She tried speaking but no words came out. Marcus stared at her in shock as the truth finally connected inside his mind. His life had not been destroyed by poverty alone. Someone powerful had erased him on purpose. Then the final witness stepped forward trembling. The old janitor lifted one last sealed document with shaking hands. There is something else, he whispered. Something about the inheritance Nathaniel left behind. The old janitor's hands shook violently as he passed the final sealed document to Mr. Kingston. Nobody inside the mansion moved. Vanessa stood frozen near the projector screen while hundreds of wealthy guests stared directly at her now. The silence felt heavier than the storm outside. Mr. Kingston opened the document slowly. His jaw tightened immediately. Then he looked up at Vanessa with quiet disappointment. You forged the inheritance transfer. A loud gasp spread across the hall. Vanessa stepped backward instantly. That is a lie. Her voice sounded weaker now. She planned all of this. She pointed desperately toward Angela again. But nobody followed her finger this time. The lawyer stood up carefully. The signature belongs to Nathaniel Kingston, he announced. But the authorization date was altered after his disappearance. Another emotional shock hit the crowd immediately. Marcus stared at the paper like his entire life had cracked open in front of him. All those years. All the hunger. All the humiliation. Someone had stolen his place before he could even speak his own name. Angela cried quietly beside him. She looked exhausted. Not angry. Just broken by years of silence finally ending. Vanessa tried one final performance. Tears suddenly filled her eyes. I was protecting this family, she cried. Nathaniel would have destroyed everything for that woman. Several guests lowered their eyes in disgust. Even members of the Kingston family slowly stepped away from her now. Mr. Kingston remained calm. Cold. Controlled. No, he said softly. You destroyed this family yourself. Complete silence swallowed the room again. The old janitor then revealed the final truth. He explained how Vanessa's father bribed hospital staff years earlier to remove Marcus from the Kingston registry after Nathaniel refused to abandon Angela and his child. A hidden payment trail matched the altered records exactly. The hospital witness confirmed every detail. The child was never illegitimate, the witness whispered painfully. He was erased. Phones stopped recording completely now. Nobody wanted entertainment anymore. They were watching a life being returned to the man it belonged to. Vanessa suddenly turned toward Marcus directly. You think they will accept you, she snapped bitterly. You are still nothing. Marcus looked at her quietly for several seconds. Then he answered with trembling dignity. I only wanted the truth. That sentence broke the room emotionally. Angela covered her face and cried harder. Mr. Kingston stepped forward immediately beside Marcus for the first time publicly. And the truth stands beside this man tonight. Another wave of silence hit the wealthy guests. The same people who mocked Marcus hours earlier now looked ashamed to even meet his eyes. One woman quietly lowered the phone she used to record his humiliation earlier. A family board member stood up next. Vanessa Reed is hereby removed from all Kingston charitable and financial leadership positions pending legal review. Vanessa's face lost all color instantly. You cannot do this. It is already done, Mr. Kingston replied calmly. Then came the final emotional reversal. Mr. Kingston carefully picked up Nathaniel's old silver ring from the evidence table. The same ring Angela protected for decades. He placed it slowly into Marcus's hand. Your father wanted you acknowledged, he said quietly. Tonight, that begins. Marcus broke down completely. Tears rolled freely down his face as years of rejection collapsed all at once. Angela held his arm tightly beside him. Nobody laughed anymore. Nobody whispered anymore. The rich guests stood in silence while the poor man they mocked finally regained his name. Vanessa looked around desperately for support. There was none left. Even her fiancé quietly removed his engagement ring and walked away without speaking. The crowd parted slowly around Marcus now instead of pushing him out. Mr. Kingston then turned toward Angela gently. Your medical bills will be handled immediately, he promised. Angela could not even answer. She simply cried softly into her hands. Then Mr. Kingston reached into the inheritance file and removed a new set of documents. Official Kingston family restoration papers. He held them carefully before Marcus but did not hand them over yet. There is still one decision left, he said quietly. Whether you are ready to come home. The massive mansion doors slowly opened behind them. Warm golden light spilled across the marble floor while Marcus stood frozen beside his mother, staring toward the life stolen from him so many years ago. Marcus stood frozen at the entrance of the Kingston mansion while the giant doors remained open before him. Warm golden light spilled across the marble floor. For the first time in his life, nobody pushed him away from that house. Nobody laughed at his torn shoes. Angela held his arm tightly beside him, still trembling from everything that happened inside the ballroom. Mr. Kingston stepped closer slowly. His voice softened. You do not need to prove yourself anymore. Marcus lowered his eyes immediately. Years of humiliation still sat heavily inside his chest. He looked at the expensive staircase. The chandeliers. The portraits on the walls. Then he looked down at his worn jacket and cracked hands. I do not belong here, he whispered painfully. Mr. Kingston shook his head. You belonged here before any of us understood the truth. Silence filled the entrance hall. Emotional. Heavy. Real. Angela suddenly began coughing again. A doctor waiting nearby gently approached her with a warm blanket and medicine already prepared. Marcus looked shocked. Nobody had ever prepared help for them before they even asked. Her treatment begins tonight, Mr. Kingston said quietly. Angela covered her mouth and cried softly. Thank you, she whispered through tears. Upstairs, staff members carefully prepared a quiet guest suite for Angela and Marcus. Not luxury for show. Peace. Safety. Dignity. Marcus walked slowly through the hallway while holding Nathaniel's silver ring tightly in his hand. The same ring his mother protected through years of hunger, rejection, and silence. Now it no longer felt like a painful secret. It felt like proof that his father never abandoned him willingly. In a smaller sitting room, Mr. Kingston handed Marcus the official restoration papers at last. His real family name. His legal identity. His rightful inheritance acknowledgement. Marcus stared at the documents for several seconds before his hands began shaking again. All those years, he whispered. My mother begged people to believe us. Mr. Kingston lowered his head with visible regret. And this family failed both of you. Another emotional silence filled the room. Then Angela reached over and gently touched Marcus's face like she did when he was a child. "You survived," she said softly. "That matters more than revenge." Marcus finally cried openly in front of her. Not from shame anymore. From relief. Days later, the mansion felt different. Calmer. Softer. Angela received proper medical care. Her laughter slowly returned in small moments. Marcus was offered a position inside the Kingston Foundation, not as charity, but as rightful family. He chose to work with community outreach programs for poor families and homeless young men. "I know what it feels like to be invisible," he said quietly during his first meeting. Several employees lowered their eyes in guilt after remembering how they once treated him. Vanessa Reed disappeared completely from public Kingston events after the scandal. Her engagement ended. Her social circle vanished. Nobody trusted her words anymore. But Marcus never celebrated her downfall. He simply walked away from the pain she created. One evening, Marcus stood alone near the mansion garden fountain holding the old silver ring again. Mr. Kingston approached beside him quietly. "Your father used to stand here every night," he admitted softly. Marcus smiled faintly for the first time. A peaceful smile. "Maybe one day this place will finally feel like home." Mr. Kingston looked at him carefully. "You already changed this house the moment you walked through those doors." Inside the mansion, Angela placed Nathaniel's old photograph into a beautiful wooden frame beside the family fireplace. No more hiding. No more shame. The picture finally stood where it always belonged. Later that night, Marcus walked past the ballroom where he was humiliated only days earlier. The same rich guests who mocked him now greeted him respectfully. One older woman quietly stopped him near the stairs. Tears filled her eyes. "We judged you by your clothes," she admitted softly. Marcus answered gently, "That happens to poor people every day." Then he kept walking beside his mother through the mansion hallway while warm light surrounded them both. Safe at last. Seen at last. Home at last. And somewhere deep inside that mansion, years of lies finally lost their power against one simple truth: never mock the poor because you do not know the story they carry. Wealth can hide evil for a season, but truth always finds a way into the light. Those who destroy others with pride will eventually stand alone, while kindness, dignity, and patience will always be remembered when the noise disappears.